Didn't change anything. We just waited too long.
You can't go far. You need those suckers.
I guess we just let it wait so long that something calmed down. All right. You guys are good.
Thank you.
And Dr. Farrell's coming and finishing up the safety meeting.
And Lake should be here in a second now.
Ms. Wallace, I told Sheree we can share screen, the policies on that. If we share, share screen, click on where it says screen, you should be able to find that back. For both kids.
Yeah, click on the small bit. Click share, see in the right corner. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's see.
For life. He said, 2 minutes is 2 minutes for that. That's it. He might be downstairs, down in the. His phone is on mute too, because he's not answering. Is Dean on Sarita?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I can't get him, so we'll go ahead. We've got a call. I would like to call the policy committee to order. The first thing on the agenda is approval of a meeting minutes. Excuse me. Is there any discussion or corrections on the minutes? If not, is there an approval for the minutes?
Second.
Lang, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. S. Bullock. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Minutes are approved. We have one item on the agenda today, and that is bus driver doula enrollment. I don't see a number on this, so is this actually a policy or a guideline? And if it's a policy, does it need a number?
This is a policy. It is being proposed as a policy, and yes, it will need a number.
Okay.
So there will need to be a number that's assigned to it before it goes before the full board.
Okay. Okay. So at this time, who is leading this? You, Dr. Ellis?
So Ms. Wallace, we start with, and then we'll start conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
No.
So what we have on the screen before you is a proposal for dual enrollment for our bus drivers. As you all are aware, we do have a limited number of drivers, and right now we have 13 to 14 vacancies. There's been a lot of complaints regarding the time that our students are arriving at home. So with that being said, we have devised a proposal for our bus drivers for existing and new current employees for you all to take into consideration so that we could possibly adopt this as a policy. Our primary purpose is to ensure the safe and efficient transportation of students to and from school, and to ensure an adequate number of regular and substitute school bus drivers that will meet the needs of Nash County Public Schools We do have a list of classified employees, and I'm going to go through that list. And we must make sure that they're qualified, licensed, and willing to drive a bus. The ones that we're considering for this essential function, the outlines of the positions are targeted for this purpose are teacher assistants, Read 180 assistants, virtual lab assistants, deans of students, reach associates, behavior specialists, restorative justice assistants, bus drivers, child nutrition employees, and custodians. We ask that these employees sign a bus driving agreement as a condition of new or continued employment. We will make sure that efforts are made to continue to recruit bus drivers in the classified realm, as well as efforts made to continually advertise and recruit and employ school bus drivers who do not work for the Nash County Board of Education currently in any capacity. Next part outlines the requirements of the current employees serving in these roles. If they have not already done so, all individuals who are employed by the Nash County Public Schools in the positions listed above, as of the adoption date of this policy, we ask that within 30 days of the adoption date, that these employees sign a bus driving agreement. And within 180 days of the adoption of this policy, all school employees must obtain a DOT medical card or DOT waiver, allowing the employee to drive a school bus in North Carolina. Also make a good faith effort to register for and attend the first available bus certified class that will be offered after employment. Continued employment is contingent upon the employee completing all requirements and obtaining an appropriate license and certification within 100 days of the adoption date. 180, I keep saying 180. Got that?
You got 100 on your brain.
Sorry about that. For our new employees, we're looking at individuals that are newly employed in classified positions to our district. They will have 90 calendar days from the first day of employment to complete the commercial driver's license, CDL class, road work, and secure a school bus driver's license with a pocket car. Employment will terminate immediately if the individual fails to secure the school bus driver's license on or before the 90th days of employment. In instances where extenuating circumstances occur, the 90-day timeline may be extended. It is required that they maintain the license and certification. Employees who have obtained a valid bus driver's license and for whom driving is a condition of employment shall be required to keep their license renewed and remain eligible to take on driving responsibilities when needed by the Nash County Public Schools. Employees not able to fulfill these requirements who do not qualify for the exemptions described below shall be terminated immediately. We have outlined some allowable exceptions at the discretion of the board for current and new employees who refuse the bus license for a permanent documented medical condition. Employees must provide updated medical documentation to support the exception on an annual basis. If a licensed driver becomes unable to drive due to a permanent documented medical condition, the driver will be required to submit their condition to the state license authority for its determination of continued eligibility for a bus driver's license. We're also only requesting that the employees drive for their respective schools only. This will assist in preventing loss of instructional time and support given to our students on a given day.
That last sentence is not in there, but
We have to update
okay, it will be in there. Okay.
I didn't get the last sentence.
It was when we talked about requesting that employees only drive for their respective schools.
Okay, so that was the last sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they want a full-time bus.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll start off the discussion with this statement, because I don't have questions. It's self-explanatory. I don't like it, but I understand the necessity. So I would support it because it's necessary, but I hope we will continue to work to try to find something else that we could do. I don't know what that something else is, but hopefully there is another way that we don't have to enforce this policy, because I really don't like it. I didn't like it when we did it before, and I still have.
So
my
there
say.
is I consider this in two areas. So we got like 13 or 14 getting trained right now. Okay.
Mhm.
If we could hire all these drivers, then you're gonna have a staff, all these buses are gonna have someone to drive.
Mhm.
Okay. The second system, or what I consider the next, which is what we're talking about today, is that you have substitute drivers sitting in those buildings that are gonna be required to substitute drive if a bus driver is not there that day.
Okay.
And I can tell you the example was on Friday, when me and Leon had to go to Red Oak Middle, did bus duty, because 5 drivers did not show up on one day. That's just one school. We had 13 out Monday. So when you're already down 8 and 9, the problem is not as much as getting drivers for permanent buses, it's the sub. Now our sub drivers are driving regular routes. So if we don't have something just in reserve is what I call it, then there's no way we're gonna be able to, that's the problem. And we got over 200, and I think it was today we went over, we got like 280, 300 drivers right now in our system. They're not driving, but they have a license. Now we got to update some of them. So when we finally do this, you're going to see that the majority have a license. We're just not asking them to drive.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really think once we get the spreadsheet done, and you all can see how many TAs actually have a license, how many custodians, how many, because I know child nutrition, but what you're going to do. But once we show you, it's not going to be as many as you think that we're just going to herd to get, tested to start driving. So, but I don't know any other way to do it.
So I just want to ask, does it cost them anything to become certified? And if it does, who's absorbing that cost?
So we're going to pay for that through transportation.
Okay.
And now we've always done that piece. We've just reimbursed them, or we've done, because there's certain stages, there's a physical, there's a class, and there's another test. So there's a lot of processes, but we're gonna make sure we pay for all that for them.
All right, and what about when they do substitute, is that a part of their regular pay, or is that considered extra?
If they drive.
Okay, just want to make
As
sure.
Mama said, if they're driving for their school, they're getting out at the time, they're not leaving early, they're not, if their clock is finished, then they go drive the bus.
To make this a little bit more palatable, I would think, is that if we could offer them a little more money, the bus drivers as a group, that would make it a little more palatable, because I can envision right now all of the calls that you're gonna get, we're gonna all get. But if we offer them a little more money, that might make it go down a little bit better. Can we do that?
We talked about some of the steps.
They make more as a driver.
I mean, but this is different. This is adding more. They got an increase.
No,
That-
they make more. When you break it down, they make more as a driver.
Yeah, they're making 15 as a TA, they get on that bus.
They're gonna make
17,
about, that's
18.
right,
I mean, how much?
about $2 more.
Okay, I put them, what, $17, $18?
And that just depends, some of the more experienced ones will make up to 20.
Really?
They'll make more driving buses than they'll usually make.
In the classroom.
And depending on how often they drive or are needed to drive, they could go into overtime as well.
Yeah.
Which would be 12.5.
But they will still get paid, not compensated, with time off or whatever. They actually get paid. Okay. LaShawna, were you saying something? Sharonda, I'm looking at Sharonda and saying LaShawna.
Okay, I'm used to it. So that was my question. I was going to ask what the compensation would look like. And what does it look like now, actually, before that even takes place? Like, in terms of teacher assistants, when they get to work, they're paid hourly, or are they paid, when they clock in? How does it actually work now? And then how will it work later?
They do, you want me to answer that one? They clock in, daily. And our TAs work a total of 37.5 hours a week on paper, even though we pay them for 40 hours. So if they were required to drive a bus, they would clock out from their TA position and clock in as a bus driver. And that's how we're able to distinguish between the time that they're in the classroom versus on the bus. And if they exceed that 40 hours, that bus time will go into overtime.
Okay. Help me figure this one out then.
Madam Chair,
If,
I would like to make a quick comment. I'm in support to only the extent that we are in such dire need, but I agree with the income needs to be drastically increased to be an incentive to everybody involved. A lot of times when we tried this before, that wasn't the instance where they were given something extra. And, everybody has now hiring and help wanted everywhere. So we want to make it worth their time, and it's added responsibility because there is a lot of responsibility when you have that many lives on a bus. So I think a lot of people would want to help, especially if we're explaining that they are substitutes pretty much. But at least if we can compensate them, I think it may make it more palatable. And I'm in agreement of that fact or that mentioned point.
all right, can we go back and talk about this 37.5 hours actually worked and being paid for 40? What happens if I do my 37.5 hours and I also drive a bus? Will I not, how will the 40 hour, that other hour and a half pay? It's an hour and a half, my math is gone, 2.5 hours. Math is gone today, so forget it. How does that play in? Because I remember, and I don't want us to revisit and have the same issues that we had before when we were doing this. And I remember a discussion about them not being paid quite the same if they drove the bus. So how does this extra 2.5 hours tie into driving a bus as a substitute?
Like their overtime was based on their teaching salary and not on the rate they were paid for bus.
Well, whether they will get paid the 40 hours. And then if you drive a bus, you're gonna go into overtime by virtue of the fact that you've already got 37.5 hours, but the system pays you for 40. Does that make am I making any kind of sense? Some of y'all become kind of strange.
Okay, if I'm following you, you're paid for
Not working 2.5 hours.
Right, you're paid for 40 hours. So
Mhm.
when I clock out, and remember, I'm not clocking out early because I'm only driving for my school. So it's with my school's time. So when I clock out and clock in as a bus driver, it's gonna be above that 40. But I can't guarantee you it would necessarily be overtime because I may take a day off the following week, or I may.
Well, I'm talking about if all things be equal.
It'll be above the 40, and the overtime is based on the driver's pay, which is the higher of the two.
Okay. So nobody will lose from their regular paycheck and then get paid on the pay for a bus driver.
The problem we ran into with the concern that you had previously, they were leaving school early.
Okay, and this makes the difference.
They were
Okay,
leaving school early. in the
Okay.
past, yes.
And not getting 37.
They weren't getting their 37.
Yep, no, they weren't.
and they will not be, yeah, that does make sense. Thank you.
Okay.
It
I have
does.
a-
They were not driving just for the school. They were
That's
driving
right.
for the school.
That's right.
There's another question?
Yes, I had another question. So what time, and this is just for clarity, what time do they actually clock in? I know that we have a staggered schedule, but based on the schedule, based on their the school level that they're on, are they clocking in 30 minutes prior to the start of school? How does that work right now? And I'm just curious, just as we kind of think through everything.
And adding to that, how will they know they need to drive the bus that particular day? When will they know? That, I guess that's the better question. How soon will they know?
I'm trying to answer her question first to think about that. I can't remember if it's 15 or 20 minutes earlier, but I can tell you if they are needed earlier because some drivers are having to drop kids off earlier, they clock out earlier in the afternoon to offset that time. Like they may not have an afternoon duty, but it varies for school. And I'm basing it on my years as a principal. And I used to have to stagger the support based on my students who was dropped off early, who left early, and I used to stagger them among the employees that I had.
Okay. Thank you.
Bus drivers would find out when they needed to drive because we have a live sheet that runs through transportation that APs receive every day in the morning. That we have someone there at 5:30 that lets them know who's not showing up at your school and they need a sub. So I would think the AP would get that message and then send that to that TA, and then we go from there.
How do you decide if, for instance, at one of the schools, you have one driver that does not show up and you've got 4 or 5 people there who are licensed to drive the bus? Do we do it by seniority? Do we?
So that's why I had people on rotations. You do Mondays, you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And it was just a luck of the draw.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
One thing that had kind of jumped off from me is that on the second page, maintaining license and certification, that last sentence, just not qualifying for exemption described below shall be terminated immediately. I mean, that's just, there's no wiggle room there. And I feel like, yes, this should be a requirement of the position. And I guess you can get an exemption if it doesn't work, but firing people for something that is not, I guess it becomes their role, but is not their primary responsibility. I don't, it just.
So the other districts, the way I was telling Ms. Wallace that it's obvious that everybody's doing this now. The ones being hired now, we need to change probably their title to, those districts are doing bus driver, TA. They're doing 2 roles. So when you sign up, you know what I'm gonna be.
Job description.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something we need to
So I
talk about,
think
is
that's
changing.
where
the job
will help you, the ones coming in know you're gonna do this. The other ones, I think you're right. If you want to make a, when it comes to termination, you all can sit down. I mean, I know in the other district, I would receive the letters and I would go to the board when it came to termination. And I would bring evidence stating, this doctor, yada, yada, said this and that. Do you feel like this is a reason for termination based on doctor's notes, other things? I mean, it could be divorce. There's a whole bunch of notes I would receive, and I would send it to the board. You all make a decision if you feel like if it applied to that, and if not,
I just, even if it just said up to termination, or including termination, I just feel like shall be terminated immediately.
Up to and including.
It seems
Yeah.
like a lot.
I was gonna say, I don't think you necessarily need that sentence in there in order to, if it got to that, you could still do that, but you don't necessarily need that sentence in there.
If it's in the job description for a new hire and you're not performing your job duties, then you can be terminated.
Exactly.
Right. It's the ones already in the system, I think you probably need to worry about. Because the new hire, they're gonna have a new job description. No, when you sign up, you're gonna be expected to get your bus license.
Right. The, something you said about, bringing the notes to the board. If you got a doctor's note that says, I cannot drive a bus, and the doctor attests to that, then I don't see why we as a board would have to see that, because if the doctor says so, who am I gonna say he's able to drive it? See what I'm
I just
saying?
know that in the other district, we had plenty of doctor's notes that came through that were not valid doctor's notes. So we had to get the DMV, we had to get the DMV involved with physicals, things of that nature to make sure that we were on the up and up.
I know I've worked with districts with this too, and that's part of the policy, is just trying to make sure that the exemptions and the reasons for the exemptions are pretty clear, because people will.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, so I think we're talking about two different things maybe, because I think you could say, we could still make them go through the hoops of getting the DMV physical and all that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a decision made by the board. So if the board would like to take that piece out that says at the discretion of the board, we could still say exemptions may be made for current new employees, and it's still a high standard, but it's something that at the superintendent level, you could make that determination.
Because you are there. We are removed from it. You see, I just don't think that's a responsibility that with the little that we know of any given a situation, that should be our. Oh, you agree?
I agree.
All right, take it.
I'm just saying, when the personnel report, when the personnel reports come through and you ask, why is there 12 TMAs being terminated? I'm just telling you, it's based on the validity of those doctors. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It can get,
And if they ask for a hearing, that's different. Then it comes to us.
and that would be, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Determination. I'm sorry.
I have a question. On the first sheet, if we flip back on that first page, I think it was saying something about willing, that must be qualified, licensed, and willing to drive a school bus. If we're gonna force them, why have willing in that statement?
Great.
Come on. Where is
To
that?
me, that's opening the door for possibles. I'm not a lawyer, but if I'm saying I'm not willing, how are you gonna
I see it.
force hiring me?
Must be qualified and licensed to drive a school bus, period. Okay, good catch, girl, good catch. All right, any other questions or comments?
I would say one thing, and this is just in terms of the number and the title, I might recommend a change of to the proposed title. I think that what we've got on there is, can you scroll up? Yeah, so we already have a policy that's entitled 6315, it's entitled drivers. And it's just it's more general requirements for bus drivers. So what I might recommend for this one would be to put it next to that policy in that same series, in that 6,000 series, like 6316 or something, but maybe title it, and I was looking at one of the ones I did for another district. Bear with me for a second. like classified employees duty to drive a school bus.
Mhm.
Classified employees dash duty to drive a school bus.
Okay.
That way it's not getting confused with the other.
Madam Chair, I had to step away for just a moment. Was there any further discussion about an additional incentive or pay increase for that consideration?
No, and we stopped it at the point where most of them would already be making probably more money as a driver than they did as a TA anyway, and then they would not be at the lowest level, the current ones, I mean, would not be at the lowest rate for driving a school bus anyway. So if someone comes in new, he might be at the $15 an hour rate. But if someone who's currently working with us could possibly be making $17, $18 an hour if they drove the bus, is that correct? So she said, yeah. So we didn't go any further with adding additional monies to the bus drivers because of that.
And they currently are making about between 15 and 18, did I understand that? An hour.
And everybody's making at least 15 as a TA. And how much are bus drivers making? Aren't they making a little more?
They're making a little more. Don't quote me on that.
I thought they started at 17.
I think it's around, it's close to 17, it's 16 something.
Yeah. Okay.
And the point I'm trying to make is we want to be as competitive and of course include people so they feel welcome, warmed, and wanting to do this. However, it is right now a market for employees, not employers. So everybody has a wanted signs up, a help needed. Let's say if I'm the average person making this amount of money and we have to put ourselves in our drivers or in our teacher assistants positions, could they possibly be making more and not doing this and going somewhere else? That's the point. If we gonna keep them, I think we need to make them happy about it. That's
give them some kind of incentive. I'm not opposed to that, but I understand what she was saying. But if we give it to this group, then we're gonna have to give it to the whole group, because we can't just isolate this group and give them additional funds. Any more questions or comments?
I do want to say something to your question, Dr. Chavis. One thing we will have to take into consideration from the financial perspective, of course, we always have to look at what we have available to use to support additional incentives, financial incentives. But if I'm a new employee, or let me go back to an existing employee. If I'm an existing employee and I am now being asked to drive a bus, I have to take your years of experience into consideration when I create your bus driver's rate, which is gonna more than likely take you higher up that totem pole anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that
thank you. Thank you. That helps. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Well, there are two things that we need to make sure that we handle before a meeting, and that is the proper name for the policy and the policy number. So with that being said, we need a motion to recommend to the full board approval of the policy yet to be
Well, I think I think what we can do is I think the motion needs to be the policy as with amendments proposed by board members today, because I think we've proposed some amendments, and I think one of those amendments could be the name.
Okay.
And so what we can do, what I would advise that we do as soon as we get out of this meeting, we make those changes and have it uploaded so that it's available on the agenda, and that the changes would include the proposed policy number and the name. So the policy, it could be, I don't know, 6316, but we'll run after drivers.
And then the two of them would be, referenced.
Yeah.
Cross-referenced. Yeah, thank you. Couldn't think of it. Cross-referenced.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend for approval the information provided today, name and number to be determined, along with recommended changes in the document.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we recommend to the full board, approval of the, policy as suggested, today, with the, recommended name and, policy number and the recommended changes. Are there any questions? I have one. Will we need this policy to lay on the table, not to lay on the table for 30 days? Do we need this to pass immediately? Okay, then include in your motion and waive the 30 days. Can you tap that to your motion?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition, we ask that the 30-day resting period is waived for this.
Do you second that? Do you accept that addition, Sharonda?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Sharonda, you're on the committee, right?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Which way are you voting? Are you voting?
Yes.
You vote yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Just asking.
No, you're fine. I just didn't mute. I just said aye.
All right, so the motion passes and we will recommend to the full board that we approve the policy yet to be named and yet to be numbered, and that we waive the 30-day wait. Is there anything else to claim our attention?
I have a question that is unrelated to the bus drivers, but it's a policy question, so I can hold it if I need to.
No, go ahead.
With our playground equipment, what is the policy surrounding like how that is replaced? Like, what is it? What is the procedure or protocol for replacing playground equipment?
I don't
I
know.
don't know if there's a policy, but there's probably a rotation of when they go and examine playground equipment. I know that we had some issues at some schools. We couldn't get equipment right now because of supply chains, but I know. Yeah, they tore one down, and I believe it was, oh gosh. During COVID, two of them got taken down. I can't remember which one it was. It was Baskerville and Nashville possibly. I think the issue now is trying to get the equipment because we couldn't order something at Inglewood. So we had to take some of that whole thing down instead of ordering parts. So, but Ms. Bullock, I think what we normally do is a rotation of principals looking at their equipment and then talking to Shannon about, you might want to look at this or that, because I mean, there's still guidelines of what they can have on the grounds, from sand to shredded wood and all that now. There's guidelines. So, but if you want to reach out to them, I mean, I would just ask them, but I thought there was some rotation.
Is there a particular?
And this, And there's another thing you can do, Sharonda, and just saying, one of the things I did was I held a whole lot of different fundraisers, and I turned over about $17,000 to the school, and we built one. So, I mean, that's another option.
Is there a particular, playground that you think might need to be looked at, Sharonda? If so, you can talk with the superintendent and let him have that, have somebody inspect those, that equipment.
Yes, MB Hubbard is specifically what I'm looking to find out about. Because my children attend school there. But also I'm on the PTO, so I'm trying to figure out what that should look like. Kind of concern. And thank you, Dean, for that recommendation. But it's like a safety issue on top of I feel like play is a part of learning. It's a part of the day. So I think it's difficult to then put it back out on the community to maintain that. So I just wanted to see kind of what questions to even ask about that. They don't really have a functional playground. So that's definitely a concern.
It should be. I can ask Mr. Davis, Ms. Bullock, to kind of get you some information.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else? Thank you all for your time and your participation, and I declare the meeting adjourned.